Macro is defined as a recording of routine steps in Excel that we can replay using a single button. It is a collection of commands that is used to replace a repetitive series of actions. Let's learn about it with an example. We have a financial report here. Each quarter we are repeating the calculation and formatting the report. To ease the job, we're gonna record a macro to assist us with the repetitive actions. First, we got to ensure there is no disruption during the recording. That means we only work within the documents which related to the actions. No navigation to other application. Click on View. Click on Macro drop-down and record a macro. In Record Macro window, we gonna give the macro a meaningful name to help us remember what it does. Example, financial report. Please take note, macro name does not allow any space in it. We may replace the space by underscore instead. Then, we may consider to give it a shortcut key, or we may just leave it blank if we do not want any shortcut. It's optional after all. In this example, we will leave it blank. Next, we may choose where we would like to save the macro. If we want the macro to be available within this current workbook only, then we gonna to choose this workbook and the macro will be available to whoever got this workbook. What if the next quarter we gonna have another workbook with the similar data to be sorted out with the macro? Okay, in that case, we may wanna save the macro in personal macro workbook instead, so that we can use it repeatedly in any workbook within the R system. However, the macro itself will not be carried with the workbook when we share it with other users. Only the data we sort with macro shall remain. Moving to the description, we may leave our remarks of the actions or steps that this macro can do. It's optional and it's for reference only. After we had set up all the above, click OK and the window will be closed and the recording shall started. Anything we do now is being recorded. Let's start with formatting the title. We're gonna change the cell color of the title. Change font color, font size and font style. Range the fields headers. And change font color, the cell color, and so on. Move to do calculation on the gross profit, which is equal to revenue minus cost. Then, gross margin equal to gross profit over the revenue. It should be in percentage with 2 decimal places. Then, when we are done, remember, click Stop Recording. Now, why do we not to autofill the cells below before we stop recording? If we autofill the range, the macro will record where the autofill cell stopped. Our new data could have more rows or maybe less rows compared to this worksheet. Thus, if macro apply the autofill, it could be incomplete because macro will stop at the cell reference which recorded in current set of data. Since we can complete the autofill by double-click under the cell, so we are not gonna record it in the macro. Here, we should make it an habit to save the worksheet in macro to avoid we forgot and leave it unsaved when we close Excel application. Go to File, Save As, and choose File Type to be Excel Macro Enabled Worksheet if we selected to save the macro on this workbook, so that the macro will be carried together with the workbook. In this case, we save the macro in Personal Workbook. That means our data workbook does not carry any macro. Thus, we may just save as how we normally do. Then, we may close the workbook completely and reopen to find if the macro is saved. Click on Macro in the View ribbon. And here is the macro we saved.